Hey, you're listening to the Intentional Documentary Podcast. So glad to have you. Around here, I'm gushing over the stories behind the pictures that we freaking love of our own lives. You know, the ones we hold as high value and iconic, because this is where photography meets real life. I'm your host, Marie Moss, and I believe that the best way to approach your photography is through your lens, your way. Through insightful conversations with photographers, I'll explore preserving life with your camera and using what lights you up to grow your brand. Let's get started. It was after 11 p.m. I'm normally sleeping about that time, but instead, I was doing what most of us do when we should be sleeping, and I was scrolling on social media, Instagram to be specific. And all of a sudden, I was jolted into this wide awake state and just completely captivated by Brittni Schroeder's Instagram shares. I got back up, like quite literally sprung out of bed to grab a notebook and a pen and wrote out about 20 questions for her before even inviting her to be an IDP guest, much less introduce myself. And I'm so thankful she said yes. Gage Schroeder was a once-in-a-lifetime kid, according to his dad. He died in a tragic accident very fast in May 2017 at 14 years old. Brittni is his mom, and she's also a professional photographer. Gage had an impact on many, I learned real quick. Brittni's Instagram feed is that story in a mix of photographs and words. She's been sharing stories of his memories, testaments to his character from herself, but also through stories that others have shared with her and her family. And she's also been really open about her ups and downs in the days, especially the first year since his loss. In seeing all of this, my curiosity kicked in. I couldn't help but wonder how she's feeling around the pictures and documentations she has of his life and the memories of him from her unique perspective as a photographer, just like you and I. I mean, that's what we do in our community, whether professional or personally or both, right? We're documenting life. We're showing people, clients, if that's who you're working with, or simply ourselves, the love, the humor, the realness, all the things that exist in everyday life, even when the goodness doesn't feel so apparent and the tough stuff is hard to accept. We are preserving memories. So, how well does all of this stand up and feel true after such a loss? That's why I reached out to her. So, here's my disclaimer. I listened to the playback and man, I sound like a goon throughout this whole thing. I told Brittni right off the bat that I was really nervous for this one. I didn't have the right words to say. It was a tough one. It's tough to listen to, but the nuggets of wisdom and perspective shakeups are just beautiful. But I wanted to say, if you have a hard time listening to stories of loss, especially around children, this is your fair warning that this episode is a bit heavy in that aspect in case you need to pass it up altogether or just listen at a better time when you have time to regroup after. Also, get the mini mag for this one. I think we did a really great job. Text the number 44222 from your phone with the code 019TREAT and we'll get it to you that way, or go to fearlessandframed.com/019 and that'll take you to the show notes where you can grab the mini mag there as well. And remember, it's free. It's filled with the pictures that go along with this episode as well as the full transcript and other goodies too. All right, we cover seriously so many things. We start off with Brittni introducing herself as a photographer, and then she tells us about a shift in motherhood that started about 2 years prior to losing Gage, having no idea that his loss was coming. Then she shares a beautiful piece of marriage advice that they've followed for 14 years, and she's really grateful about that. Then she gives us a look at the Compassion Club, which is a nonprofit her family started after Gage's loss, which there's a lot of really cool things about that club. But what I found really interesting as a documentarian, that it's also a unique way to preserve Gage's spirit and story. You know what I mean? So, well, you will know what I mean when you listen. Then we get into all the photography and memory recording stuff. She shares how her pictures serve her vivid mental images of Gage, what she wished she had pictures of, and I ask what kind of documentations that she leans to the most, which she had a really surprising response. At least I thought so. I give her a glimpse into my program, the Preservation Project, and ask her what kind of advice or what advice she would give to my members. What could I possibly be missing in this process? And she delivers with such a beautiful, why didn't I think of that piece of wisdom that also had the other listeners, I gave a sneak peek to the Preservation Project members, they were thinking, I really need to get more intentional here too. So, and I was raising my hand right along with them. Then we talk about the tough pictures that were made by one of her friends of Gage and his family in the hospital, of his funeral, and also the family visiting him at the cemetery. And then finally, I ask her what her last picture of him would be if she could get that vivid mental image of him into a photograph and out of her, brain. So, deep breath, enjoy the story. Brittni, thank you so much for coming on with me today. Can we start off with you just giving us a little background of who you are as a photographer?
Sure. So I started photography about 10, 11 years ago when my second son was born. It was right when blogging was starting to become a really big thing. And I just wanted to take better pictures of my kids. So I got a camera for Mother's Day and just started shooting, and then realized that just because you have a nice camera, that doesn't mean you can take good pictures. So I just started taking classes and learning, and then a lot of self-taught, did some workshops. And then that's kind of how I started there. And at first I was doing families, babies, children, and then I realized that I loved to do high school seniors. I love the teenage age. I connect with them. That's my favorite age. And so shortly after I had done a workshop and I had decided I was going to do it for business, my husband, we got transferred to El Paso, Texas. So then I said, clean slate, I'm just going to do high school seniors. And so I just jumped right in and did high school seniors. I dabble. I do a little bit of everything. I do families. I do destination weddings. But my main bread and butter is high school seniors. That's my real passion is high school seniors.
What I love about your senior work, from what I saw on Instagram, is that a lot of it is them, they're doing an activity or something that they love. I remember seeing I think it was a dancer, or maybe it was someone in yoga, or that was a friend of yours. I'm like an Instagram stalker of your feed. And I think there was a kid with a guitar. So it's not like what I typically think of senior photography, high-end fashion photography. You're also, it's more of like an editorial approach too. Do you agree?
Yeah. Yes, I definitely, I think a challenge with high school senior photography is it's really hard to evoke emotion when there's just one person in the frame. So you can't say, love them, kiss them, hug them. So with me, I love movement in my pictures. So it's a lot of, let's do something you love. And I have a very editorial style. I like movement in all my pictures. I love emotion. And so over the years, I've evolved into, it's not just taking like a headshot or a portrait. It's more about a whole experience, telling a story. So yeah, I do love the editorial. That is definitely my style, more a lifestyle editorial. So.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I love it. So I came across your feed when I saw a stark contrast in your feed, really, because there was a lot of your business work, and then it became very family share oriented, and it's been almost like a journal for you, I would say. So I know your story, but I would love for you to fill our listeners in a little bit about your family and some context around the loss of your son, Gage.
Okay. So yeah, I had always had my Instagram. It was business, mostly 80% business, 20% family, and travel. And travel is my other passion. And I try to do a mixture of it. About my son, so this was 2 years ago, and my son was in 8th grade. And I remember talking to a girlfriend and saying, oh my gosh, I can't believe I only have 5 years left with my son. I can't believe I only have 5 years until he leaves home and goes to college and goes away. And I remember like such a shift. I've always been super family oriented, but I remember just thinking that a shift. I want to be a mom. I need better balance, and my priorities shifted. And then my life just turned around, and my life was like 100% about my kids. I've always loved being a mom, so it wasn't like I was neglecting them or anything, but my priorities changed. And I would look forward to picking my kids up from school and laying in bed and talking to them at night. And it just was, seriously, looking back now, I know that it was like a tender mercy, because my life, especially to my older son, that year was a lot about him and making sure he was happy. And he started high school. It was his first year of high school. And I remember just the highlight of my day was picking him up from school and to hear about his day. And then within weeks, he'd made friends who had driver's license. So that was taken away from me. But as the year went on, we were like super, super close. He always has been. I've always been really, really close with him, with all my children. And on May 18th, he had an accident. He was messing around with a firearm, and it went off, and he passed away. So yeah, sorry.
That's all right.
And I look back now, and I'm just like so grateful for all the memories. Somebody once gave me some advice when I first got married, and they had said, go on vacation every year. If you can afford it, go one with your kids and one without. And I took my children on vacation every year for 14 years. He was 14 years old, almost 15. When he passed away. And so looking back, I just am so grateful for all of the memories that I had made with him. So that's the story. He passed away, and after he had passed, the house started getting flooded with, people started bringing flowers over, and I just said, I don't want this. I don't want this. And so we started a scholarship fund, and people donated to that. And, then right away we started getting letters, coming to the house, whether it was like a text or through mail or people delivering them. And we probably received like close to 700 letters from people who he had impacted in their life. And these stories, we always knew he was like this awesome kid, but we had no idea the impact that he had on others. Yeah. And so we started getting these letters, and I put it like, it was a good distraction for me, because I put all these letters in books so that I could have them. But just, there was like, probably 3 or 4 letters from people that said that they were going to kill themselves, and he saved their lives. And so many from people that were like, I didn't have any friends, and Gage talked to me. Nobody liked me. Your son always talked to me. He opened doors for me. He told me I was beautiful. On and on and on and on. And so it was just like such a tender mercy to get all of these letters. And so because of that, we ended up starting a nonprofit, the Compassion Club, or the Gage Schroeder Compassion Foundation. So
Yeah. Tell me more about that. How does that work? How have you been, do you go to schools to introduce it? And I think I've seen that they're helping you with it like all over the place, not just in your local area.
Yeah. Yeah. So, part of it is I started reading all these self-help books and I wanted to heal. I was like, how can I get better? And I read all these books and I just was looking for hope. And one of the things that several books have in common is you have to serve others. You have to give to other people. And so we started, and my husband and I have always been a big believer in giving and serving others. And there's been times in our lives where things are not going well for us. And we've said, okay, we need to go and serve somebody else to get our mind off of ourselves. And so we've kind of always been that way. But we, along with the letters and stuff, we started having kids coming over to our house, teenagers, my son's friends. And they started coming over. I mean, it was like, honestly, it's been almost a year and there's probably kids that come over almost 6 to 7 days a week still. Wow. They still are coming over. His friends or people who he had impacted and have come to our house just to feel like closeness to us and to him. But anyway, I saw, I knew that we needed to heal and we wanted to do something. And I remember speaking with a friend who lost a son, and she has a nonprofit as well. And I just said, I don't know what to do because we had received like large amounts of money. And she just said, it will come to you. It will come to you. And I remember thinking like, we have to help these kids. We have to help them. So my husband and I spoke at several schools, but then we decided, you know what, let's start a compassion club. Let's start a club in the high school. So we started a compassion club. We started a club. And then we started one in the middle school. So I have a daughter in elementary, a son in middle, and Gage was in high school. So we said, let's start clubs in each of these schools. Let's help these kids heal. And we saw how these kids were struggling and how they were just really so lost and just so like overwhelmed with grief. And so we thought we need to teach them to serve others because that is how you heal. That is how you get better. So we started the Compassion Club. And at first we were like, we're just going to do it like once a week. And the kids begged, please, can we do it every week? And so it was quite the project. So we started doing it. And what we would do is we would have a really cool quote. We'd pick a value. So say we pick compassion or kindness or honesty or forgiveness, but we would pick a value. We'd come up with a thought, and then we would tell a story. And some of the stories were about Gage, things that Gage had done. And then we would do an activity. And so I one day I just got this idea that, okay, we need to get these. People started asking me actually, hey, how do I get this in my son's school? My son's getting bullied. My daughter's struggling. My niece has anxiety. She would do. So all these people started reaching out and saying, we need this at our school. So we decided that I had a board, and we decided, you know what, let's design a curriculum. Let's make a curriculum and let's start this and let's get these in other schools. So I had a group of educators and parents and principals and psychologists, and we just put together this curriculum. And it's basically like a book, and it has values and stories and activities to do. We have an elementary ed and a secondary ed book. And so we put this together, and we decided that, it took a lot of time and a lot of work, and we're still in the process of doing it. And so then we came up with the idea of, because then we were doing fundraising, and I said, I don't really want to fundraise a lot, but we wanted to give scholarships as well. And my son was a wrestler, and we wanted to give a academic scholarship, some sort of academic, but something too for sportsmanship, because he had such sportsmanship. So we were like, how are we going to get this funding? We don't want to do a ton of fundraisers. So we decided that we would sell the curriculum to schools. And with that money that the schools pay for these programs, we will pay it forward and we will give scholarships. So how you get a scholarship is if you have an active compassion club in your school the person running the club or a fellow student or anybody can nominate people in the Compassion Club, and they're eligible to receive a scholarship. So it's kind of like it goes full circle. It's like a pay it forward. And so that's what we've done. So we have the curriculum, and we sell it on the website. We have compassion gear, and it's just been so well received we're constantly getting people saying, how to get this in my kid's school? Can you come and speak at our school? And so a lot of times we will go out to schools and do speaking engagements and try to get the kids excited. But then we also have this program that follows, and it tells you from point A to point B how to run the program and how to get in the schools. And, it's like it has made an impact on these kids' lives. They constantly, because if you are not an athlete and you are not smart, like, where do you belong?
Right.
I mean, we're in a world right now where kids just want to belong. They just want to be a part of something, and they want to be a part of something good. So a lot of kids, I'll say, what clubs do you do? What activities do you at school? Nothing. I'm just in the Compassion Club, and they love it. And we have at our high school consistently, we have 60 to 70 kids that show up every single week.
Wow.
So it's been, in the high school, and in the middle school, we have about 30 that show up. And then we do the elementary ones once a month. So it's just been so well received. And constantly I'm getting messages on social media from kids saying, how do I get this in my school? Like, I want to do this in my school. So, these kids, there's a lot of bad in this world, but there's people who really need something like this. They want to do good as well. So that's kind of what we've done. It's been like quite and it's been so healing for me and for my family. We have compassion shirts. Both my daughter and son, pretty much every day of the week, are wear a compassion shirt. Like, it's been very healing for them as well. So
yeah, I love all of that, man. I'm gonna have to go look on the website and learn about getting that up here. What is the website, by the way?
It's showcompassion.org.
Okay, I'm going to link to that in the show notes for any of you listening. So I want to pivot and talk about memories and stories, because that's honestly like what really captivated me about your Instagram feed. Was it was like every share in the past year has been not just that it's a story, but it's so detailed. Like, in speaking to how, like, the year before he passed away, you were kind of getting back into this motherhood focused groove. You shared in September a story of your daughter and driving her to school and how special those mornings were. And you didn't leave it at that. There was a lot of details in there. And then another share was you were packing for a trip to Michigan when you felt like you were forgetting something, which was him. And then you kind of went a layer deeper into that with these details around that meant an extra set of clothes, Reese's peanut butter cups, an extra toothbrush, and things like that. You've shared stories on a comment that you had received from his kindergarten teacher when she pulled you aside when he was little, your Costa Rica trip and his fearlessness, and so on and so on. I think I listed about 6 or 7 different stories that just caught my attention. And I'm curious, how much prior to him passing do you think that you really noticed details so intricately? Has that changed since he's passed?
I definitely think when you go through like a tragic loss like this, your perspective, it does change. You don't sweat the small things. You try to live every day. You appreciate, do I still get upset at my other kids over messes? Yeah, I do. But I also try to focus on the good. It's definitely like mellowed me out. I think I was mellowing out even before the accident, but I think I've always, appreciated the things about my kids. I remember Gage was he was a handful when he was younger. And I remember, and I think as all young moms do, we're more worried about what other people think of us. And I remember apologizing for him all the time. I remember saying, "Oh, I'm sorry." And I would apologize before he would ever do anything. And I remember had like a light switch going on and saying, you know what? If I'm not going to advocate for my son and my kids, who will? And, people would say things about him and I would, like, oh, he won't take no for an answer, whatever. And I would turn it around to say, he's persistent. He knows what he wants. And I think, I remember somebody giving me advice and they said, the things that drive us the most crazy about our kids is what's going to make them an amazing adult. And that was so true of Gage. He talked to everybody. And I remember him being little and apologizing because he wouldn't stop talking. And even, in elementary and middle school, people would make comments like, oh man, he talks a lot. But it ended up being like his greatest gift that touched and impacted so many people. And so I think, just like what you said, like taking, like these are our mental pictures. These are the things that we have that remind us of like everything good about our children, are those little things, trying to, not focus on the bad, but trying to embrace them as a strength and not as a weakness.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I love that perspective. And when I was reading some of that, like your, like that quote around the things that drive us most crazy about our kids is what is going to make them amazing, strong adults. And apologizing. My little guy, Levi, is only 4.5 years old. And I'm like reading my thoughts in your words around this. And I'm like, I don't like leaving the house and taking him to other people's homes because I'm afraid he's going to just make it explode. That child of mine. So I loved reading all of those stories. I'm really curious, have you, I mean, obviously I know you've been sharing on Instagram. Are you writing this stuff down or recording this in any other format? And I ask because if I were a kid and if I were to stumble across these stories of my siblings or of myself, like I would be so like amazed and thankful. So I was just wondering if you have a journal or if you've another outlet.
When I was in the hospital, somebody had given me a journal and I had written things down at the first. I'm kind of a slacker journalist, but I feel like that is kind of what Instagram has become for me, is a journal. And I actually had a sweet friend print off my journal and put it in a book for me.
Oh, cool.
And so, yeah, so I, every year my goal is to journal more, but I kind of feel like that is what Instagram, I had spoke about how I'd gone on a vacation every year with my kids. One of the things when I'm on that I think as photographers, well, I think in general that we do not print our images. They're on our computer. We don't print them. But every trip I go on, I take pictures and then I print little 5x5 books, and my kids all have keepsake boxes. And I will print one for each of my kid, and they put those little books in their keepsake boxes. And so I am very good at journaling through images when we go on vacation. Day to day, I need to be better, but on vacations, because those memories are so important to me. But I think that is what is great about being a photographer, or even somebody with an eye. Sometimes you don't need to write things down. Sometimes you can tell the story through images. You can see happiness. You can see, I think that, I look at some photographers that are so good at telling stories, with details and everything. And I believe you can tell stories through images, and they can be more powerful than words sometimes. So, yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that you are already in that mindset of printing off one for each kid. I think it was episode 5. I was talking about how my grandparents passed away and my dad was one of 5 brothers. There's only one set of photos for everything. So I love that you're being proactive there. That's so smart. Speaking of vivid mental images, looking at the photos that you have of Gage, especially now, do you think that there are different pictures that you wish that you had? Like, what I'm wondering, like, if you think of who he is, do you have pictures that really serve that purpose? Do you think that knowing what you know now, you may approach photography any differently? Any light on that?
Yeah, it's funny because I had a friend, she came over after Gage had passed away, and she said, and I've actually had several people say, you're so lucky that you have so many amazing images of him. My friend had a, a baby pass away, and she said, I only have like 4 pictures of him. And she's like, you're so lucky you have so many more. But it's funny because as a photographer, I wish I had more. I wish I had more pictures of him. And I have thousands of pictures of him. And one of the things that I am like sad about is that he had changed so much. I had taken pictures, and I think there were some of the pictures that I will send to you where he's in a hoodie and he's walking and everything. But like, he had changed so much. He had turned into a man. And I don't have those pictures. I don't have those. Luckily, like, I have a ton of videos from his friends, as much as I hate social media for teenagers.
Yeah.
I like feel so blessed because I have all these videos of him, like the day that he passed away and leading up to that, where he had changed and he was a man. And I wish that I had those images, because I have all these, and it's interesting because I look at images when he was a baby, and I don't like, it doesn't make me sad, but when I see pictures of him right before he passed away, like, that's who I miss. I miss like the man that he had become and who he was becoming. That's the stuff that I miss. So, so I'm grateful for the ones that I have, but I think we can never have enough. And I think, like, even professional pictures, I have a lot of pictures with the phone and everything, but yeah, I wish I would have, because kids change so much, and so he changed. Luckily, I had done a photo shoot a couple months before, but he had even changed since then. So I was, I wish I would have had more pictures of him recently, but you just don't, you don't think that way. We'd gone to Costa Rica in March. He passed away in May. So I had vacation pictures of him surfing and waterfall jumping. And, I had those great pictures, but just the little things, like the little freckles on his like cheeks and stuff like that. Like, I wish I had more of those.
Yeah.
So you just don't know, unfortunately. And I am blessed. Like I said, I have so many pictures of him, but
yeah.
Always look more.
Yeah, for sure. I loved the story that you shared. I think it was with the water. He was on a rope, I think, Costa Rica, I believe, and he had all that advice to stay out of the plants and not do this, not do that. And he was so fearless and reckless, you said in your caption. And I think that's a perfect example of how you shared this picture. I didn't see any of that in there, but there was so much heart and so much story behind those photos and the testament to his personality in that. I really loved that one. Next question that I have is, speaking of the pictures and the videos and how there's never enough, I also really loved the story that you shared of looking for, I think your words were, you were frantically searching for a trace of his existence, and you had found a note that he had written within the last couple of years to you. So he must have been 12 or 13. And it was just a love note to his mom that was just beautiful, but it was in his handwriting. And I'm curious, out of things like that, like things like his handwriting, and that was a piece of his heart that he was sharing with you. Pictures, videos. Is there any one medium over the other that you feel that you're most drawn to when you're in that moment of, I just want to feel more connection to him? Do you pull up your phone and look at videos, or is there one thing that you do that you tend to keep going back to?
Well, let me touch on the letters. So, my husband and I had been married, I think 2 years, and we didn't have money. We were college students, and he had gifted me for, I think it was our anniversary, and it was 24 roses. And I remember saying to him, don't you ever spend money on flowers like that again. Like, what a waste of money. And so, my love language, I don't know if any of you listeners have listened to 5 love languages, but my love language is words of affirmation. Words are so powerful to me. I'd rather have somebody tell me they loved me or then get a gift, so that's my love language. So my husband I just said, don't buy me, he'd always say, what do you want for your birthday? What do you want for our anniversary? And I always said, I don't want anything, just write me a letter. So my husband writes me love letters for every holiday instead of presents, because that means more to me than anything. And he has a journal now, and he just writes in the journal. But so he kind of had done that with our kids as well. So when it was my Mother's Day or my birthday, he would have the kids write me a letter or write a card or something to me. And so it was so awesome that I had the letter. So Mother's Day is coming up, and he passed away 2 or 3 weeks after Mother's Day, and he had written me a letter telling me that he loved me. And so, but then throughout the years, I had all these letters or cards that he had written me. So I definitely am a big believer in the power of words, and the written word is so powerful. We don't write words anymore. We text or email. And so I do think that. And so I think just a combination. I don't think I feel like you're making me want to go read that letter right now, to be honest. But when I'm missing him, it's probably pictures and videos is where I am drawn back to. But even just going in his room, I have on the wall where we had measured how tall he was, obsessed with getting tall. And we had measured just a few weeks before he passed away, and he was as tall as me. And still to this day, I'll go in the room and just hug the wall because that's how tall he was. Mm-hmm. And so I just think it's just so important to make memories with your kids and talk to your kids. And, he would always, even as an almost 15-year-old boy, he would still want to hold my hand, and come lay in bed or whatever. And I just think taking the time to really talking to your kids, those are the memories that I have, are us talking and laying in bed and, driving in the car. And, so I definitely think spending quality time, really loving and learning about your kids is the best gift that you can have.
I agree. In fact, I have this program called the Preservation Project that launched July of last year. And I definitely have not experienced such a tragic loss like you have. But where I come from, I look back, I had the most amazing childhood, and it feels like somebody just pulled out the rug from under me because all sets of my grandparents passed away, 2 uncles, a best friend, and this was all within a 15-year time span, except for one set of grandparents. And so it really, what that meant was Thanksgivings are different now. All these different things have changed. And I found that photography for me is an avenue for healing, because I think that I have the loss has helped me have this value vision. So I see these little details of my kids that might drive me crazy as gifts a little bit better and things like that. So I started this preservation project, and that it's helped people to get back in tune with their values. Another example, before we moved to South Carolina, when I was back in Michigan, I found that I was trying to keep my kids busy so that I could get work done rather than closing the laptop when they were home. So the first phase of this is just getting your observation back in alignment, then preserving something, using that as a form of expression. So maybe that's going to live in a journal or on Instagram or wherever, and then use those things to connect with one another. So in all of those different pieces, observation, the actual act of documenting or preserving something, expressing through finding a home so it doesn't get lost on your hard drive, and then using those stories and things to share and connect with one another. What advice would you have for participants knowing what you know now, what you've been through?
I just think, like I said, making memories. We had done the vacation where we had gone on vacation with our kids every year, and just creating memories. And I think it's true. When you're starting a career and even photography, it's hard to get lost in it. It's hard in anything. It's hard to have balance. It's hard to put the laptop down. It's hard to do that. And so that's why I think it's important to work hard and to play hard and to unplug.
Yeah.
and really focus on, like your kids. And, it's funny because I remember when I was growing up thinking, my mom is on the phone all the time. And it's funny now because I'll get on my phone and my kids will say things like, "You're on your phone all the time." And I'm like, "I'm barely on my phone when you guys are home?" And so but I think kids just they want our attention. And there's things that you have to do and sacrifices you have to make when you're starting a business. But I just think life is too short, and we're not going to die and go to heaven and say, "I wish I would have worked more." We're going to say, "I wish I would have spent more time with the ones that I love." And I just think, especially how our society is now, I think kids more than ever, they need their mom and dad. They need us to listen to them. They need us to love them. They need us to accept them. And so, I think, yeah, what if you do have a successful business? What if you are making money, but what if your kids are a mess? Like, what is the sacrifice? So I just think it's just so important to spend time with your kids, do the little things, because that is like, will make a bigger impact. So,
Yeah, for sure. I love that. I just love that like aspect of be intentional on creating the memories, like make the time for it. All the rest will fall into place. That's so beautiful. Just a couple more questions for you. I'm wondering, you had just the most incredibly powerful, I don't even think that's the right term, photos of your family with him in the hospital and at the funeral and visiting him at the cemetery. And I would love to know, coming from a photography community that is hit with objections from a lot of people who are afraid to have a photographer document their life in their home, like all the beautiful everyday moments, what sparked the idea of having the hard stuff documented? And I would just love your thoughts on those pictures and
I,
having
yeah, yeah. I, I knew when I was driving to the hospital, I knew that he wasn't going to make it. And so my good friend was there, and I just said, "I just want pictures. Like, I want to remember these last moments." I actually, when I was 21, and just my husband and I had been married a year, and we'd been married 3 months. I had gotten pregnant, and this was my first child. And anyway, she was at 37 weeks. I delivered, and she was stillborn. And I remember at the hospital, they gave me a little disposable camera and said, take some pictures." And she had been passed away like less than 24 hours when I delivered. And so she was this beautiful baby. And I had handed the camera to somebody, and they had taken pictures, and it was all pictures of me holding the baby, or my mom holding the baby, or my sister, but none were of the baby.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't think like, that's when you are going to, that your baby's going to be dead. You don't think like, "Oh, somebody take pictures." And so I think because of that, I knew the importance of like capturing those moments. Like, I wanted those moments, like I wanted to have them. So because I just knew. And so I think, yeah, we don't think that way. Like, "Oh, is it, are we intruding?" And, there's been several times in my life where, I've had friends lose babies or whatever. And I've said, "Let me come and photograph it. Let me do it," because I wish I would have had more pictures of my first child, and you have those forever. You have those memories forever. Yeah, they're painful. Yeah, they're raw, but they're yours, and they're a part of your story. So, yeah, I'm so grateful that my friend, and the pictures in the hospital are just iPhone pictures that I had a couple friends. I just said, "I just want pictures. Don't feel like you are intruding. I want these," so.
Yeah, that's so powerful. I have to say, from the outside in, looking at all of those raw, really tough pictures, I look at them and I don't just see the loss that was happening. I see a lot of love, like so much evidence of love in your family and in your community. And I mean, they're just breathtaking. And I thank you for sharing them on Instagram. because I just think it's amazing. My last question for you would be, can you describe what the vivid image that you have of Gage in your mind, what he looked like, not in his literal last days, but just as him at that stage in life? And if you could like go out and make a picture, like what would that look like, if that makes sense? It's probably a hard question.
It's interesting because like sometimes at night, like I close my eyes and I try to like visualize him. And all my kids have these beautiful brown eyes and these great eyebrows. And I remember like physically his eyes and then like the little freckles on his face. But it was just like, he was so much more. Like he was like wise beyond his years. My husband at the funeral, when he spoke, he said Gage is a once in a lifetime kid. And he just had this gift. He was just so intuitive. He could tell when people were struggling or when they were sad. He just talked to everybody. He could tell when people were lonely. He just had this like greatest gift. And he was smart and witty and funny. And his goal in life was just to make people happy and to make people just feel joy. And so, I miss that. I think that I feel so grateful that I was chosen as his mother because he was that amazing. Like I feel unworthy that I was his mother. And I'm so grateful for, almost 15 amazing years with this amazing kid. And, it's hard because I think as a mom, we see everything. We see their weaknesses, we see their strengths, but I was just so proud to be his mom. He was just an amazing kid. So, and I just hope that through his foundation and through everything that we're doing, that his legacy can live on through others and through compassion especially to kids who really need it. So,
yeah, I love that so much. And in a way, this is not the, compassion thing over here, but I think that just by you being here, I have no doubt that those who are listening they're going to look at their life a little bit differently and take a moment to write something down, just to embrace what they can today. So thank you so much for sharing your story. Can you tell our listeners your links where they can find you on Instagram, what your handle is, and again, the foundation link?
So my Instagram is Brittni Schroeder Photo, and it's BrittniSchroeder photo. And you can go back and like you had mentioned, I documented, when it first happened, that was my therapy. I wrote every day, probably for 3 or 4 months. I posted something every day and I was documenting it. I've kind of fizzled a little bit now. And then the other one is the Compassion Club is the other one. I'm trying to remember what the exact, let me look really quick. And then our website is Show Compassion. It's compassion_club.
Okay.
It is the Compassion Club one. So yeah. So I'm grateful for like amazing support because I couldn't do this alone. And, I feel blessed for so many people who have supported us and me. So
yeah, well, thank you so much for being here. And those of you listening, I will link to all of Brittni's links in the show notes as well at fearlessandframed.com/intentional documentary podcast. Thanks, Brittni.
Thanks.
All right. I'm back. Just a few more minutes and then I'll let you go. Just want to round up with one big question for you. But to start, there's a difference in documenting for art, documenting for memory, and documenting from memory. And if you're like, what the heck, from memory? What does that even mean? To me, that's about establishing security and connection to an already anchored in memory. It is intentional documentary. Intentional documentary is about documenting what matters in your life from memory. They can be past memories, they can be living memories. Either way, it's from memory. And you can listen to episode number 2 for more about that stuff. It starts with how you see your life to begin with, your value vision, as I call it. And it's not just your values, it's actually seeing it when you're living. That gets a little bit fuzzy when we live our lives. It does. We get clouded by stuff that comes up that we end up amplifying into something bigger than what it really is, or our worries and our fears, our self-doubt. All those things sort of creep in and hinder our value vision. So here's the big question for you that I want to leave you with. What might you not be seeing that if you were to look back on this season in life, you'd crave connection to? Your answer isn't something that you can wholly answer right now, right this second, or even with a concrete answer, because it's ever growing, it's ever changing and evolving with us. And of course, most of us won't experience a loss like what Brittni and her family did in our lifetime. But whether in loss of any kind or simply in change, we have the privilege to give a nod to our values by making a photograph, or by writing about it, or even simply talking about it, whatever. To me, this acknowledgement is the highest level of presence. It's just a matter of deciding to pay attention. So another little exciting thing in honor of Gage and Brittni's story today, the Preservation Project just got better. I decided to add a 5th week to the experience. We do these weekly missions, as you heard me talk about earlier, and I've decided to add one that is in honor of Gage and his family on creating new memories. I'd be delighted to have you inside for our next round. Visit fearlessandframed.com/preserve for more. Remember, today's mini mag can be found at fearlessandframed.com/019, or you can get it by texting the number 44222 with the code 019treat. Hope you enjoyed today's story. Bye for now. Thank you for listening. If you've got a quick sec, leave a review. Utilize that space to let me know what spoke to you out of today's episode, what questions were sparked from you. Every single time that I hear from you, you spark ideas in me that I put right back into the podcast for you. So it's win-win, right? You can always hit me up over on Instagram at fearlessandframed is my handle. And as always, you can go to fearlessandframed.com/intentional documentary podcast for this episode's show notes and any mini mags and past show notes. All the goodness is over there. And until next time, what are you going to preserve next? Talk to you soon.